Have you ever wondered if there's a version of Christianity that got lost to history? A more mystical, philosophical path that existed long before the doctrines we know today? What if I told you that a forbidden text, the Gospel of Mary, holds a key to this hidden tradition, and its secrets are unlocked when we read it alongside another ancient masterpiece, the Hermetic Poimandres? Let's start our journey. The comparison between the Gospel of Mary and the Poimandres isn't just an academic exercise. It's a revelation. It shows us a shared spiritual world, a common ground that existed before the major religions drew their battle lines. Today, we're going to embark on a comparative reading, exploring 5 major themes that connect these two powerful texts. You'll see how they align in their doctrines, their symbols, and their paths to enlightenment. First, let's look at how knowledge is received. Both texts share the same revelatory structure. Gnosis, or divine knowledge, is transmitted through a vision. In the Poimandres, the story begins with the narrator meditating, and suddenly his intellect is lifted up. He receives a direct revelation from a divine mind, not from a book or a priest, but through an immediate inner experience. Now, look at the Gospel of Mary. After the Savior has departed, Mary Magdalene also receives her teachings through visions. This isn't a public sermon, it's a private, internal event. It requires a stable mind and the ability to discern truth with the nous, the higher intellect. In both texts, true authority doesn't come from a title or an official position. It comes from the personal capacity to receive and understand a spiritual revelation. The key here is that revelation is a combination of vision and an awakened intellect. Authority is about inner understanding, not external power. Second, both texts present a radical view of what it means to be human. They share the same anthropology. The true human is a being of mind and spirit, not just a physical body. The Poimandres describes the original human as being born from the divine mind, a luminous androgynous being that existed before the fall into the material world. This fall happened when humanity became fascinated by its own reflection in matter, identifying with its lower physical nature. The Gospel of Mary echoes this idea perfectly. It states that sin isn't a moral transgression but an ontological error. It happens when the soul mistakenly identifies with the body, when we confuse the temporary with the eternal. Sickness and death are simply the consequences of this cosmic mistake, not a divine punishment. So, in both traditions, the body is just a temporary garment, a covering for the soul. The great error is a simple case of mistaken identity. The fall is an error of knowledge, and salvation is the recognition of our true spiritual nature. Our third point is cosmology. Both texts describe a universe populated by archons, powers, and celestial spheres. In the Poimandres, after death, the soul ascends through 7 planetary spheres. At each level, it sheds a lower aspect of its self-desire, deceit, illusion, greed, and so on. These celestial powers aren't depicted as morally evil demons. They're more like structural cosmic mechanisms that govern the material world. Similarly, in the Gospel of Mary, the ascending soul confronts a series of powers: desire, ignorance, anger, and the wisdom of the flesh. These forces try to hold the soul captive by lying to it, by claiming they have authority over it. But here's the secret. In both accounts, these powers only have influence over what resembles them. The moment the soul gains knowledge and lucidity, their hold dissolves. The archons are just mechanisms of confusion, and liberation is achieved through clear ontological insight. This leads us to our fourth shared theme, soteriology, or the path to salvation. And here, both texts diverge sharply from mainstream religious ideas. For both, salvation is achieved through knowledge, not sacrifice. In the Poimandres, salvation is never about redemption through blood or the death of a savior. It is gnosis, an awakening of the true self, and a return to the divine source. The enlightened individual becomes a stranger to the world, even while still living in it. The Gospel of Mary presents the same idea. Salvation doesn't depend on the crucifixion or the physical resurrection as a saving event. It depends on understanding the Savior's teachings, undergoing an inner transformation, and identifying with the eternal soul. Both texts propose a nonviolent, non-sacrificial path to liberation. Salvation is self-knowledge. Physical death is a secondary event. It holds no redemptive power. Finally, what is the ultimate goal of this journey? Both texts agree. The purpose is to find rest in silence. In the Poimandres, the soul, having completed its ascent, rejoins the divine realm of the Ogdoad and enters the life of silence. This silence isn't an empty void. It's a state of non-dual, fulfilled being. The Gospel of Mary describes the liberated soul entering a new reality, a new eon, which it explicitly calls silence. This is the end of all struggle, a state of perfect peace and tranquility. The ultimate destination is not a physical paradise, but an intelligible state of being, beyond all change and becoming. Silence is fulfillment. So, when we look at Mary Magdalene through this lens, we see she isn't just a disciple. She is a Christian Hermetic figure, an embodiment of living wisdom, or Sophia. Her authority is spiritual, not institutional. This reveals a Hermetic Christianity, a bridge between the early followers of Jesus and the philosophical traditions of Alexandria. Like Platonism and Gnosticism, this was a path of inner initiation before Christianity was standardized by empires. In essence, the Gospel of Mary and the Poimandres teach the same truth, just in different languages. You are not what you think you are. You are an eternal consciousness that has forgotten itself, and salvation is the act of remembering. Now, let's take this a step further. This comparison isn't just philosophical. It's deeply practical. It's alchemical. The process described in both texts is a spiritual alchemy, a transformation of the self. This isn't about turning lead into gold. It's about liberating consciousness from its identification with matter. The base metal isn't the physical body. It's the error of identity, the false self. The great work of alchemy, then, is a two-step process you might have heard of. Solve at Coagula. First, you dissolve the false self, that's solve. Then you crystallize the true, divine self, that's Coagula. Let's look at the solve phase, the dissolution of the composite man. First, you dissolve the idea of the body as your true self. The Gospel of Mary says sin appears when we mistake the body for our being. The Poimandres says the fall happens when we love our reflection in nature. This is the first alchemical operation, separating the subtle from the gross, dissolving the compound. Next, you dissolve the passions, which both texts call the Archons or powers. Desire, ignorance, anger, these are emotional and mental fixations. In alchemy, these are seen as impure sulfurs, energies that burn too hot and keep us trapped. The alchemical solution isn't to fight them, but to disintegrate them through understanding. Finally, you dissolve external law. Mary's gospel teaches that rules and laws only bind the body, never the soul. In alchemy, any external law imposed on the inner work is seen as a premature coagulation. It forces a shape before the inner substance has been purified. The true path requires breaking free from all external authority over your inner transformation. This process of dissolution leads to a stage called the Negredo, or the black work, the death of false self. This is often the most feared and misunderstood part of the journey. In the Gospel of Mary, after the Savior leaves, the disciples weep and Peter is terrified. But Mary remains calm. Why? Because the Negredo isn't physical death. It's the death of identification with the ego and the body. Those who fear death are those who haven't yet dissolved their attachment to the physical self. This is Peter's error, confusing the inner death of the ego with physical martyrdom. After the dissolution comes the coagula phase, the fixation of the true being. Once the soul ascends in the Poimandres, it becomes one with the divine. In the Gospel of Mary, the soul rests in silence. This is Coagula, a fixation in the eternal. There's no returning to the old limited forms. A key part of this is the androgynous coagulation. The primordial human was seen as androgynous, whole, and complete. Mary herself embodies an authority that transcends gender. When another gospel mentions making the female male, it's not literal. It's an alchemical metaphor for integrating duality into a unified inner androgen. This is the rebus, the completed work. Peter, still stuck in dualistic thinking, cannot accept this. And what is the final product of this great work? It's silence, the philosopher's stone. Silence here isn't emptiness. It's perfect stability, the ultimate fixation. The philosopher's stone is silent because it is eternal, no longer subject to the turmoil of becoming. Mary Magdalene, in this light, is the living stone. She has completed the great work. She dissolved the psychic man, passed through the Archons, and fixed her being in the eternal mind. That's why she isn't afraid. She has no need for an institution because she speaks from a place of inner silence. So you see, the Gospel of Mary and the Poimandres are not just belief systems or moral codes. They are operational manuals. They describe a process. Dissolve what you believe yourself to be, solidify what you truly are, and find your rest in silence. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden connections between these incredible texts. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning.